Just a second. Hey folks, welcome to Overdue Doctor Who, and I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a bit, which is to talk about one of the sort of supporting shorts that was done. Now, I kind of dropped off covering these. I did Time Crash. I might have done Time and Space. I can't remember now. But I eased off doing them because there started to be a lot more of them around Series 7 and during it. Most of them aren't particularly interesting, and they were just preludes to what ultimately, would just be the episode that would air shortly after the shorts. And they didn't feel like they were worth talking about particularly. This one's different. And I know quite a few people, both in comments and during live streams, have been asking, was I going to review this? And I think I'd always planned to, but it was an experience rewatching this. Now, I am going to explain what PS is, but honestly, your best bet before continuing to watch this is to just watch it yourself. It's 4.5 minutes. Go watch it. Come on back. I'll still be here. So this was the additional scene that basically fills in the gap of Brian, Rory's dad, and what happens with him after Amy and Rory are trapped in New York at the end of Angels Take Manhattan. So it basically answers what would otherwise be one of the big hanging questions. Hey, this character who you established and we've spent a couple of episodes with at this point, they are seriously impacted by what's going on, and that's not covered in the episodes proper. Now, what actually caused this thing to come about at all, and in the form that it does, is fairly interesting. So, I guess in the process of getting Series 7 shot and working on it, Stephen Moffat was talking with Chris Chibnall and was pretty upfront about the fact that he felt awful that Brian was basically a dangling thread. And, one could argue, should this have been part of Angels Take Manhattan? And I would say it shouldn't, because it deludes the emphasis on the doctor-companion relationship specifically, and the breaking of that really needs to be the focus of that episode proper. So I get why Stephen Moffat didn't have anything like this in that episode, but he was talking to Chris Chibnall and he said, I feel really bad about that. I feel like such a jerk. And Chibnall, who had been the one writing Brian primarily up to that point, because he wrote Dinosaurs on a Spaceship and Power of Three, in which the character appeared, he said, well, look, why don't I write an additional scene? Because, we're already planning on doing all these shorts. I'm working on this pond life thing. We could, shoot that, have it be an extra for like the DVDs or something. And so that was the original plan. Chris Chibnall wrote it because A, he'd volunteered to, and B, basically he'd written the character more than anybody else at that point. He might have actually been the only person writing the character directly up to that point. When it came time to filming, unfortunately, the actor who plays Brian wasn't available. He was off shooting something else. And the thing about scheduling is it really is a pain in the butt, especially if you're nowhere physically near the other place where you want to do something. I know in the minds of some viewers it's like, but it was such a short thing, it would have just been a day's work. Well, yeah, but if he's under contract working somewhere else, he can't leave that to come do this, and the people doing Doctor Who can't hold the crew or schedule them for like just to come in for one day at a later thing. They want to be set up for longer term stuff than that. So it just becomes impractical to try and work around that. That is why so many things fall through, because of actor availability. So what ended up happening is this was presented as a storyboard, meaning that for each shot, what would have been the shot of the, if it was done live action, you have a drawing of the angle and the presumed positioning and expression of what the actor was going to bring. And they did bring in Rory to read, because it has Brian having someone he doesn't know show up at his door with a note from Rory, and they did bring in Arthur Darvill to read that because he was already there. Because, again, it was supposed to be shot at the same time as Pond Life, so he was around. He could do that. So they had him read that. So you do get to hear him deliver that, which helps. Now, I have seen this before. It didn't hit me nearly as hard when I first watched it as it did this time. I don't remember it having a massive impact on me at all, actually. Now, at the time that this aired, my kid had been born, so that had happened. I don't think my grandfather had passed away yet. That would have happened, I think, a little after this. It definitely would have been after this. So that hadn't happened yet. That's probably an impact on why this hit me so hard now. And also, relatively recently, my own father, recently to my recording this, my own father passed away. And I'm not going to dwell on that because I didn't have what would be called a typical relationship with him, but I'm not going to bog down in that. But basically, I have a lot more personal experience and a lot more emotional baggage for this thing to pull at and get a reaction, and it absolutely did. I was in tears through most of this. And I think it does emphasize how sometimes things being written for a more mature audience have nothing to do with violence or sexual content or language. Because I do feel like this scene specifically is written for an older audience. Or at least it works best for an older audience. And the reason for that is it works best if you have enough relevant personal emotional experiences that this thing can pull on and really hit you in the gut. Because it didn't hit me as hard before. But now I've had more experiences that feel relevant and feel referenced by this. And so now, older, more mature, more experienced, it hits a lot harder. And that's not to say that it can't hit you hard at a younger age. It varies. Some people have varying levels of empathy they're able to have at even a younger age. Some people actually go through the kinds of experience I'm going through relatively recently at a much younger age, so they've got those experiences earlier on. But I think by and large, a lot of the stuff is things that most of us won't have had experience with until a little later on in life. And there's a wonderful sense of maturity to this piece as a result of that. So it is sweet. It is very nice that it got put out there because it is a delightful and heartfelt tying up of what would otherwise be a massive source of like, but, what about among fans? So it's nice that it gets addressed as sincerely as this. And the other thing is, like, even though it's not really animated, as I said, it's a storyboard, so each image is still and unmoving. They have, like, some degree of camera shift. Like, it pans over or it zooms in or out. But there's really no movement to it, but I could very sincerely picture Mark Williams, how he would have performed this, what his face would have done while reading this, and sort of picturing that in my mind made it again hit all the harder, because I'm pretty sure he would have absolutely nailed it. I love that it opens on him watering the plants, which was his justification for not traveling. Someone's got to stay and water the plants. So it opens on the right action. It addresses all the logistical things you would want it to address, while being at its core an emotional piece. And I've seen it argued that this might actually be the best Doctor Who thing Chibnall has ever written. And I don't know if I agree, but I also would have a hard time arguing against that. This is such a surgical emotional strike, while at the same time, at least for me, feeling so sincere and so genuine that it is not emotionally manipulative the way that normally something this short would have to be. To get the kind of emotions that you get out of this thing, out of something this short, you usually have to be pretty ham-fisted. But this has the advantage of getting to draw on characters and experiences we already know. So it doesn't have to be as forceful to still land with a very, very affecting blow. So if for any reason you hadn't watched this before, or if you haven't rewatched it in a while, I would recommend doing so. It wears its heart on its sleeve in the best way. And I'm glad I rewatched it. And I had wondered, will I have enough to say about this thing to even justify a video? Yeah, turns out I did. P.S. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Usual stuff to do: like, subscribe, comment, share this around. All of those are helpful. I have a Patreon. That's incredibly helpful. There's links to other stuff besides down in the description, but you don't have to click on any of them because, end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.